All right, start things out this morning. There's bound to be a really good way to introduce this, but I haven't thought of what it is yet, so I'll just lay it out like I normally do. I've been thinking about doing this for quite some time. I know a lot of people that like to watch the YouTube videos have told me that they spend a lot of time just listening to them on their drive, and I thought it'd be cool for people that have commutes, horseshoers and things like that. I can just do some audio stuff and just kind of go over the stuff that's in my head in the mornings while I'm doing chores and getting things together, just talk about the things I think about. And the first thing that's on my mind this morning, I'm going to start catching some horses and moving them around, was a conversation that Cliff Schatt and I were having the other day about how often we ride these horses. And this is something that if anybody listening sends a horse to a trainer, this is pretty common. Just give you guys a heads up about what's going on. But then a lot of you non-pro riders too feel like you need to ride these horses every day. And I'm just going to kind of tell you that you don't. These horses, the really good ones, don't need rode every day, and the ones that aren't as good-minded or physically aren't as capable, they can't take getting ridden every day. And so, how many days a week do they get ridden? Mine typically get ridden 5 days a week because I'm like a border collie. I gotta have work in front of me or else I go get myself in trouble. But then I try to give them Saturday and Sunday where they're not being ridden, but I'm still doing things to try to teach them, try to make them better. And like I said, some of them can't take getting ridden 5 days a week, so I come up with stuff like this. So for instance, today, I've moved into this new arena here in this last month, and hadn't had anything going on for a couple of years, so the alley on the back side had a bunch of tumbleweed growing up in there, and I was waiting for it to get dry enough that I could burn it. And so just along about the time I got all these horses used to the tumbleweed being over there, that kind of spooked these youngsters. Just about time I got them where they didn't mind that tumbleweed, I burnt the tumbleweed, and now they're spooked to the black spots, and just spooked to that whole side now because it keeps changing on them. So what I'm going to do with a handful of these over the course of today while I'm doing other stuff, I'm going to just put them in there. I've got a cut gate in that lane, so I can do 2 at a time. It's a matter of figuring out how to get in there. But I've got a cut gate, so I can do 2 horses at a time and just let them hang out in there for, a couple hours. I'll clean some stalls. I've got some things I want to do with some of these others. A couple of them I want to float teeth on. And I'll just swap them out and keep getting them swapped out. So those are the kinds of things that a guy can do where you're still working on the horse, still improving the horse, but you're not necessarily riding it. And you'll find, got about 18 gates I got to go through to get where I want to be. You'll find that a lot of times, one that you really just started getting something accomplished on, riding them, and so you really want to strike while the iron's hot and go to riding, you'll find actually that if you do something like this, you get even more done. And there's other things too. If you're somebody that's got a patience pole, well, shoot, a lot of times if you had a real kind of a nervous horse or something, you're having a hard time getting through to him, then that day you finally do get something done. Well, instead of riding them again the next day, go time that patience pole. Let them go think about life. Little things like that, to me, are really, really valuable. I can only imagine somebody driving and listening to this and hearing the creak of that gate and swerving and driving off the road, but sorry about that. It's the only way I can do this. You know, a couple of these other horses that are more advanced, today they're going to get turned out in the arena today to play. I've got them stalled up, you know, and horses need to be able to touch each other and be with each other. So ones that I've got stalled up next to each other that already have a little rapport, I will throw them together in the arena, let them buck and play and roll. I'll keep an eye on them. Any of them that haven't put together before. So those are all just kind of things that whether you're a trainer starting out and you feel like you need to do something like this, but don't know, think maybe, boy, I'm getting paid to ride them, I better ride them. Sometimes you get more done doing this. Whether you're somebody that your trainer does things like this, well, here's why. And there again, non-pros. 2, I know you guys get to feeling like you need to be riding that horse every day. You don't. Do something with them every day, but you don't need to be riding them every day. I can think of several people off the top of my head that non-pro riders that are good riders, doing a good job training their horse. You know, you can do little stuff while you're taking care of the yard. Maybe go tie that horse someplace that hadn't been tied, but just use your imagination. Throw some different stuff at them. Do things to stimulate their thinking. And a guy can go as far with that as he wants. You know, whether that's throw them in the round pen with a beach ball and let them have their way with it or whatever. But you'll find it gets a lot done. And in terms of riding these horses every day, the days we do ride them, and like I said, I try to ride mine 5 days a week, and I'm riding almost exclusively youngsters. And so I can get away with basically doing the same thing every day, because for one, physically, that's all they can take is these real low-level maneuvers. But for 2, they're still trying to learn how to be a saddle horse. But those horses that are more advanced, oh yeah, she's having fun over there. I don't know if it's actually fun yet, but these horses that are more advanced, I see people just drill them and drill them and drill them. And whether they're riding them 5-6 days a week or 3 days a week, they're just doing the same drill. And those horses get sour to that. Get where they're unhappy. And I rode one here not long ago that was real advanced, but just was getting spooky of things that he'd never been spooky of before. I got on him and he wasn't scared. He was bored. I got on him and just went to doing different stuff, and I was just trying to figure out where the buttons were, and never spooked at anything. And so then when his owner got back on him, her muscle memory went right straight into those drills she'd been taught. And that horse, for one, got really stiff. And then got all spooky. And that was just his release for the fact that he was just tired of doing those drills. Got her doing other stuff. Holy smokes, he got brave again. So it's things like that guys got to think about. It's really easy to I can put that last filly right here. It's really easy when we as riders are trying to advance ourselves, and trying to learn something new. It's easy to forget that these horses aren't machines. I've done that myself and seen other people do it too. I'm trying to figure something out and I forget to think about them. And since we teach them with the release, we all know that they learn from the release, not from the pressure. Well, if we just keep putting that pressure on over and over and over and over, pretty quick they're going to start thinking, well, I guess this isn't right. I thought this was right, but I guess it isn't. So they're going to try other stuff. What you doing, Pistol? I've got another spot here where I'm putting another horse to hang out for a couple hours. There's a privacy fence just on the other side of my arena here. It's my neighbors, and they've got well, heck, you can go over there for a little bit, and I'll put the other one over there. They've got turkeys, and those turkeys are turkeying all day, making crazy turkey noises, and so that's just a scary spot in my arena where I can put something over there for a couple hours and kind of get used to turkey noises. Another thing that's on my mind is what we feed and whether or not we use a whole bunch of additives, grains and supplements and things like that. When we need to and when we don't, has got a heck of a lot to do with where we are in the country and the kind of hay we're getting. So a lot of the feed back east, a lot of the hay back east, and they've got to have hay. They've got to have something to browse on. That's just how their guts work. But a lot of that hay back east is real low nutrition. It's kind of washed out. You can't get much out of it compared to the hay here in Fallon. Grow some of the best alfalfa in the country here, and it's affordable. You won't hear me say that very often. Most of the time I'll be complaining about the price of hay, but comparatively, it's affordable. Well, unless I have a horse that has specific nutritional needs that need to be addressed with supplements, this alfalfa that I feed is all they need. That and salt and clean water. Especially back to the part that I'm riding mostly young horses. They don't have any problems. And physically, I don't want to be feeding them any heavier or hotter than that, and I'll address that in just a second. But come on, you two old reprobates. No. Got a couple of geldings. I'm going to turn the arena and let them play. Anyway, like you get to other parts of the country, don't have really great hay like this, yeah, you probably do need some protein supplement, other kind of supplements, vitamins, minerals, whatever. Don't you kick me on the way by. I'm letting the horse pass me in the lane, which is not safe and not a good idea, but obviously I'm pretty trusting in that particular horse. Oh, they are running and bucking and acting like fools. I'm gonna have every horse in the county acting like a fool here in a minute. So yeah, other places do need supplement, and that goes too if you've got your horses on just on pasture, on grass. Where I came from, the Rogue Valley in southern Oregon, that grass was so good that in the summer when it was really strong, and this was just grass, just native grass in the pasture, but that grass was so strong that I'd dry lock my horses at night. Horses eat more at night. I'd dry lock my horses at night and then let them out. About 11 o'clock when it's starting to get warm, then go eat a little bit and then shade up. But if I didn't do that, they'd founder on just grass. No additives, no supplements, no nothing. Just to the other side of the mountain there in Klamath Falls, that they had a real selenium deficiency. And if you had something out on grass, they better have some selenium to go with it, or their feed would go bad and all the other stuff that goes with selenium. I mean, once you start noticing it in your feet, then it's really bad. So sometimes you do need those, sometimes you don't. Don't let the Purina guy tell you that this is something you got to do if you love your horse, because they will. You know, you got to remember those, and I'm picking on Purina because they're the biggest ones, so you can throw rocks at them, but any of those feed companies, those reps, they're making a commission. You know, those guys are gonna tell you anything they can to get you to buy their product, and you can't blame them for that. That's capitalism 101. But it is something to think about. I can remember a time in Florida, we had a rep out there at Buck Daniels' place, trying to, and we did need to do some things there with nutritionally. That place was a little tough. Like I was talking about, it's southern Florida, so that native grass, the only thing those horses weren't lacking was salt. That salt grass. And so we did need to do some things, but this Purina rep, he was trying to tell us this and that about whatever this grain was. I wasn't buying it, especially when he told me I could feed the top line. I said, no, you can't feed the top line. You can feed them good enough that you can ride them harder and make that top line, but you can't feed that top line. And he said, oh yeah, well yeah, that's what I mean. But then about 3 months later, he came out and he had some other product that was even better. As far as all the science showed, it was even better. And it was only $3 more expensive. And I read the little tag, and it was exactly the same feed with the ratios slightly different. And I said, come on, man. But, so yeah, those supplements, those are things that depend on where your horse is and what they're doing. And that's, used to be you could call your county extension officer, get a lot of information in that regard. I don't know if that's still something you can do. But I kind of just bounce on the topic of these young horses and their nutrition. Young horses need lots of good nutrition, just like all young animals. You know, fat's the prettiest color there can be on a colt. But what I see a lot of people tend to do is take that a little too far. You know, Fat's the prettiest color on a colt. These colts need good nutrition. Okay, we'll feed them, but they don't need 19 kinds of different supplements to go with it. Unless, like I said, you've had blood work done and bone density tests done and stuff like that, and your vets put them on a regime. Otherwise, they don't need a bunch of extra stuff. And what you risk, if you're giving them a bunch of extra stuff, is growing them too fast. And you can have some problems then. Get these colts grown up too fast. Later on down the road, you have a lot more problems with ligaments and tendons and things like that. And you're just not doing them a favor there. There was a particular place, I won't mention the name of it, but I rode all their horses for quite a few years, and all of those colts were on free choice grass and free choice alfalfa 100% of the time. Okay, well that's a little much, but that's fine. They were born under those circumstances and raised like that, and they would self-regulate on that grass and hay. And those young horses, I think it is good for them to have multiple young horses, like from birth to 2 years old, when they're really doing a lot of growing. Have multiple choices. They can have a couple different kinds of grass and some alfalfa. And you can watch them, they'll go, one day they'll go pick over here, and another day they'll go pick over there and choose different stuff. But so this place I'm talking about, having free choice grass and alfalfa is kind of all right. Having it be free choice was the part where it didn't have to have quite that much. We could have made that a lot less expensive. But then on top of that, they got, 4 pounds twice a day of what was basically corn, oats, and barley with a whole bunch of molasses in it. And then there was 2 or 3 other kinds of grain in there too, but it was basically wet cob. And that is just way more sugar and way more carbohydrates than those young horses need. And so, besides making it darn tough on me riding those pot lickers around, because they were just so full of it for 5-6 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. They were just so full of energy that I had a real tough time keeping them from hurting themselves and keeping myself from getting hurt. But then what made it extra tough is, since it was just pure carbohydrates, it was like a kid living on one of these sweet cereals, that there was 5 or 10 minutes of just absolutely more energy than could be controlled, and then nothing. Then I couldn't get anything done because they were just completely worn out. And so that made it real tough. And then just following the histories of some of those horses, they all tended to break down. By the time they were 10 years old, they were having major joint and tendon and ligament issues. And it was because of those first 2 years eating all that grain. I've seen it in a number of different situations. That was the most poignant one, just because it was so many horses and so much extra feed that it was real noticeable. But things like that, guy can just keep in mind that this horse looks healthy. His hair coat looks good. He's fat, but not over fat but not obese. You know, shoot, he doesn't need anything more than this grass that I'm giving him. And, you know, shoot, maybe a bucket of oats once in a while just because you like to give him something special. They really don't need a ton more than that when they're growing, and then once they're grown, you know, what you're doing with them dictates a lot about what they need fed. If you're only riding, taking an hour lesson twice a week, well, the reason you're having such a hard time with your horse is because he's eating too much, not getting exercised enough. Same with a lot of these performance horses too. They're getting rode a lot, but not quite enough. So those are some things to think about. That alfalfa, I've heard, I don't know how many times I've heard it. Oh, I don't like to feed alfalfa that makes my horse hot. Alfalfa doesn't make your horse hot. It makes him act like who he is. The reason he doesn't act up and doesn't get in your hands and doesn't get chargy on whatever kind of junk grass you're feeding him, it's because he doesn't have the energy to. You know, so that's anytime I've ever heard somebody say, oh, I don't like to feed alfalfa, it makes my horse hot. I say, no, alfalfa doesn't make your horse hot, it just proves to you don't have him very broke. I saw that not too long ago with a bunch of horses I was riding for a ranch. The owner said that very thing. I don't like to feed alfalfa, it makes these horses hot. And so they fed wheat hay. There's nothing wrong with wheat hay. Wheat's a good feed. But the consequence was that, similar to the grain, those horses, once you'd loped around for about 10 minutes, they seemed kid gentle, you know, kind of have a little energy right there at first, and then lope around a little bit, and they just seemed kid gentle. Well, the fact of the matter was, they were just tired. Go to feeding them something with a little more protein, a little more bottom end to it. Turns out they weren't that gentle. I'm cleaning stalls as I'm talking here, and thinking about how much you can learn from your horse's poop. That may sound a little funny to some. I know a lot of the more western end of people say, yeah, you sure can. I think a lot of people that have their horse boarded in a stall and don't clean the stall themselves might go, really? Yeah, you know, just from picking it up and seeing it, you can figure out a bunch. You know, one thing, is this horse getting enough to eat? Is this horse not getting enough to eat? Is there way too much poop in here for one night? There's not enough. You know, and it takes a little time to get each individual horse figured out to make that call. But, you know, is that manure tight? Is it loose? Are they getting, you know, are there big strands of hay left in there? Or is it mulched up pretty good? You know, if it's not really mulched up real good, then there's a good chance that they need their teeth done. They're not getting it chewed up very good. You know, and maybe it's not their teeth. I tend to blame everything on the teeth, but maybe it's something else going on in their gut. You can also see what they're eating, what they're not eating. Back to the teeth deal, if there's little balls of hay left, that's a good indicator that they need their teeth done. how wet that manure is. You know, if it's real dry, tight little dry black balls of manure, then that horse isn't drinking enough. Well, why is he not drinking enough? It's not like the water. Does the chore girl forget to water him? Is the automatic water broke? Could be a lot of things. Something to say about automatic waters, I've got them here, and they're handy. I like them, but I'm scared of them too, because it's easy to get complacent about that water. And so it's one of the kids' chores is every day check every one of these waters and make sure they're still ginning. And that's fun for kids, my age kids, because the way they do it is they splash some water out of there, and if it fills back up, it's working. Another thing, cleaning these stalls, cleaning this one here. This isn't a stall, this is a 40 by 40 open lot that these, I've got 2 mares and a weanling in here, and it is a lot messier than normal. It's just scattered all over everywhere. And so that tells me that, and it got chilly last night, but not cold. But that tells me that I didn't give them quite enough to eat last night. I was the one that fed last night, so I'll take the blame. And the way I know that is because horses keep warm by eating, and that the work going on in their gut is like a heater, keeps them going. And so since they didn't have enough to eat, evidently, it got chilly, they marched around in this pen all night trying to keep warm. So that's on me, but that's something you learn from cleaning a stall. And that's a good thing. That's why I don't hardly ever clean stalls around here. I've got 3 kids, there's no reason for me to be cleaning stalls. But I try to at least once a week clean these stalls. Not so much to give them a break, that's what I tell them, so they like me. But it's not so much to give them a break, it's so I can get in here and see what needs to be seen. And so with this feeding here, tells me it's time. Like I was saying earlier, I like to feed alfalfa. But when it starts getting chilly, I get some grass, and I'm not real concerned with the quality of it, so long as it's clean, but not real concerned with the nutritional quality of it. But I get some grass, and in my evening feedings, I give them the regular amount of alfalfa I think they need for nutrition, and then I just give them a bunch of that grass, that cheap grass, so that they have something to just munch on and stay warm. You can tell a lot about how cold it's getting at night by that. I'm sure there's somebody listening thinking, yeah, you could look at the thermometer too, Brett. Yeah, you could. You could, but I don't. That's something a guy could say for these weanlings. You know, on bigger ranches that raise a lot of horses. Well, the way I was taught was that on these ranches that raise horses, when you wean these foals, you need to throw them in with a couple of little geldings, depending on how many of those foals. I was taught it needs to be a 1-to-5 ratio, one old gelding for every 5 foals. But that's kind of rule of thumb. But anyway, guys I was around, they'd make sure those foals got thrown in with a a couple old geldings and just kind of turned out the back somewhere. Go look at them once in a while, but otherwise forget about them. Let those old geldings teach them stuff. And you want to be careful that it's an old gelding that was retired by force, not by choice. You know, one that you didn't retire because you were sick of riding him because he was a repugnant old fellow, but one that you retired because, gosh dang it, he deserves it. You want to make sure it's one of those old good geldings, because a old nasty gelding will teach colts nasty habits. Old good gelding will teach them good habits. And I really believe that. And I paused there and said, well, the way I was taught, because the last few ranches I've been on didn't do that. They just turned all those wean colts out together without a boss. Well, you create kind of a Lord of the Flies situation there. And when they come in, they really don't know anything more than what they did when they got turned out. And what they do know is bad. But if you turn them out with these couple older geldings, then they get raised up, get taught manners, but other good stuff too, just about getting through life. You'll find when you go to start, those ones are a lot easier to start. I've found that after starting God only knows how many horses. But so in this case, it just logistically works better for me to have this foal with two mares, and they're good mares. They're the kind you want to have around, and sure enough, she's teaching them. They're teaching her some good things. You know, when I weaned her off her mama, at the time, the only place I really had to put her was with two other weaned colts, and we did exactly what I said not to do. You know, we had these three weaned colts together, just left to their own devices. Well, mine, when I put her in there, I caught her pretty often when she was on her mama's side, just catch her and brush her a little. When I put her in there, you could catch her. She didn't really like it, but you could catch her. And after a month of being with those other two, and you could catch them too. After a month of that, couldn't catch any of them. And so I've had her in this lot with these other two mares now for about a month. You go over there and she walks up to the gate just like they do and gets petted on and scratched on. And it really is, she learned habits from these other two mares. And they pick on her a little bit, which is good too. You know, she gets to eat when she's allowed to go eat. You know, and not everybody's got the opportunity to throw a bunch of colts in with a couple old geldings and forget about them for a year. I know that. Not everybody's got the opportunity to do what I'm doing. Throw a foal in with a couple of good mares and let them raise her. You know, some people are, only thing they can do is have them in a stall or have them in a pen by themselves. And that's part of life, but you need to be even more diligent if you're in that situation of getting your hands on those foals and teaching them the manners you want them to have. Those are the kind you do need to go get your hands on them every day. And be darn careful that you don't succumb to the fact that they're cute. You know, they'll get rude fast if you just lovey-dovey them all the time. But catch them and bring them up to the saddle house and Give them a little handful of something yummy. Not out of your hand. Just put a handful in the bucket. I've never seen anything good come of feeding a horse by hand. But those are the ones that you do need to make sure you interact with a bunch, and you be that old gelding or that good mare that teaches them manners and teaches them about the world, shows them where to be. And that's a lot of responsibility, and not everybody's cut out for having a foal. You know, there's a lot of the horse world that, not even from lack of skill or lack of experience, there's just a lot of people aren't cut out to be around foals a bunch. So that's something you got to be honest with yourself about. And so I guess anybody that's in that boat is thinking to themselves, well, how in the world do I teach a horse how to be a horse? Well, study horses. Take every chance you get to see horses that aren't being manipulated by people, whether it's they're standing in their stall, or they're loose in a pasture, whether they're alone or with other horses. Take those opportunities to study the way they act, the things they do. Try to emulate that. You know, learn to pin your ears. These mares, all they have to do is cock an ear at this filly when she's getting out of line, and she knows it, and she gets back in line. And so they're masters of reading expression. So practice your dirty look, and they'll figure out exactly what your expression means. That's not just with foals, that's with all horses. A friend of mine called me yesterday. He's a younger guy. And he's done a little of this and a little of that. And if he listens to this, he'll know who I'm talking about. But he's done a little of this and a little of that. Started some colts. Does a good job. Cowboyed a little. Shod horses. Been around horses a lot. And here recently hung his shingle out. And been riding outside horses, making his living doing that. And so he called me to tell me about this horse he was riding. And by breed and by the way it had been handled and et cetera, he really didn't want to ride it very bad, but he needed the money. And he said, it's just amazing. He said, she's really mentally immature, so we had to spend a little time there. But he says, once I got over that little hump, he said, it's just amazing. She just slides to a stop and is soft off the rein and moves off my body. And he says, it's just incredible. She's just a freak, because she's not built to do that. She's not the right breed to do that. And by right breed, you say, well, what do you mean she's not the right breed? Well, she's a standard bred. Standard breds aren't known for sliding to a stop, you know. And so he kept saying, yeah, she's just a freak. She's just one in a millions. And I didn't say this to him. I'm going to let him chew on it for a little while. Start a few more before I mention anything. But is she a freak? Is this just amazing that she can do this and it was so easy? Or over the course of the last year, did you learn so much that you're getting a bunch done faster because your fundamentals are better? I think we run into that. A guy said to me one time that, something about you only ever get one really good horse in your life. And I said, I don't think that's true. I think you can have as many good horses in your life as you got time to make. I said, people that say that you only get one good horse in your life, it's because you only run across one that'll put up with the owl-headed way you're doing things. And rather than try to try to learn, try to make yourself better all the time, and try to make better horses, you blame it on the horse and say, "Wow, there's only just this one good one. Boy, he was a good one. I've had some that were okay, but he was the one good one." This guy in question that I started telling about, I know him good enough that even if I don't bring it up, he'll figure it out eventually. But that filly he's talking about, I've no doubt she's good, but what's good is that he figured out how to make her good. You know, that one good horse in your life theory, those guys, they end up riding 1,000 good ones that they just can't make. That one good one probably wasn't really all that good. It was just one that would put up with the dumb way that guy was trying to go about things. So, you know, that's something to think about if you run across the track of horse after horse that not really liking, not really getting along with. I mean, it could be that I've dang sure put myself in that situation where all I had to ride was trash, whatever. But I stop and think, are these horses really that trashy? Or am I being so rigid in my way of doing things that I'm not getting things done? You know, is it me or is it them? Think about that. And even in those situations where I can promise you they were a whole bunch of trashy horses, but by changing my mindset a little bit, not worrying about the fact that they weren't very good, and just trying to get the good out of what I did have, made them a lot better, a lot faster. So something Dad always used to say, he said, no matter, and he wasn't even talking about horses, he's a musician, he doesn't know anything about horses, but he still said some smart stuff. But something he always used to say is that no matter what the situation is, blame yourself, because you're the only one that can change anything about what's going on. And that may just be changing your mind, you know, but it doesn't matter if you're not getting along with your horse, you know, blame yourself for not getting along with that horse and figure out what you can do, because you can't change the way that horse thinks, but you can change the way you think. And then that applies to life too, you know. Your boss is a jerk, well, blame yourself. And you know, it's not that he's a jerk, it's that I'm not doing things right. You know, you can change yourself and make things happen, but by blaming anything else in this world, all you do is just perpetuate it, you know. And it could be that your boss is a jerk, but that doesn't help anything, calling him a jerk. You know, that gives you ulcers. But by saying, no, he's not a jerk so much as he demands the best, and I need to give him the best. You know, work harder. And while you're doing that, look for another job. The kid's got a pony they're riding, and the pony's in training with me, but what's the point of me riding the pony? And so I've got the kids riding it, and I'll split it up with them somehow or another. And so one kid one day, one kid the next, and I'm trying to set up the training regime there to where the more advanced 11-year-old is starting the colt, or the pony, she's not a colt, but starting that pony into whatever the new concept is as we advance. He's more advanced, so he kind of gets the pony started on that, and then next rider down, she's 9, and so she kind of takes the next step to where the pony kind of has it, and then the youngest is 6, and from there we kind of see if we got the concept in the horse good enough, because the rider's not very mature. You know, he's a cool kid, but he's 6, and mechanically he really doesn't quite have steering figured out yet or anything like that. So makes it easy to judge how this training's going. And so anyway, yesterday was his turn. Did some more maneuvers, and which at this point is walk and trot a circle, you know, go stop, turn around, go the other way. And so this pony that was was trotting beautiful little circles around me in the arena with the middle kid on yesterday, or day before yesterday, with the littlest one. That pony was he was getting around me, but it was here or there around, and he was getting really frustrated and wanting to pull, and I just kind of let it go for a little bit. I let him get frustrated, and I wanted to let him get frustrated, because coming out of frustration is a good place to learn. And I wanted to see how that pony dealt with it. And pretty typical. She just decided, well, he doesn't know what we're doing, so I'm going to take charge. So anyway, when it finally got to, I guess I let it percolate as much as I dared. I stopped him and I said, explained to him, I said, the reason she's not going where you want is because you're just looking at the back of her head. You got to look where you want to go. And that's a hard concept for adults, but it's a real hard concept for a 6-year-old. So what we changed our exercise to where I'd go stand at a point and I'd have him look right at me and ride to me. And then I'd go, once he got there, then we'd pet her and I'd go somewhere else. And he got the concept figured out if he was looking directly at me. So we did squares basically instead of circles. But that's anytime I help anybody riding, 9 times out of 10, that's the biggest thing is look where you want to go, look where you want to go. I do it too. I've got a terrible bad habit of it. Riding these youngsters all the time, I got one eye in my peripheral vision looking where I want to go, one eye looking directly at them, watching their ears and keeping track of what's under me. And so then when I ride a more advanced horse, I have to get in my own head and give myself the speech about, I got to look where I want to go. That horse's head ain't going to fall off. Horse is under me. Got to look where I want to go. So I think that's something everybody could benefit from a bunch. You hear so often guys that have been on ranches and then turned horse trainer, or even just guys that have been on ranches, guys that are still on ranches. It is so much easier to make a horse on the ranch because you got the ranch. Because you open that gate and you head off somewhere and you're looking where you want to go. You're looking 40 feet out, you're pointed for a point, high tower, a tank on top of a hill or whatever, water tank on top of a hill. You're pointed at that point and going there, but then you're focused and looking 40 feet in front of you for a down piece of wire or rock pile that you want to steer around, or a rock pile you want to steer into, depending on what you're riding, or a badger hole. And so your head's on a kind of on a swivel, but you're focused on where you're going. And so those horses get under you and learn to stay between the reins real fast. You get around pen in an arena, and the advantage is you don't have to worry about it because they ain't going to get away. But the bad part is we get, because our peripheral vision works so good, we get to where we don't look where we're trying to get to, and that could be at any point. Even just loping a circle, I'm headed towards the other side of that circle, and now I'm headed towards the other side. Now I'm headed towards the other side. It's amazing how much you can get cleaned up by doing that. I think I'm going to turn this off for a minute. Kind of have things to talk about. Thank you so much to the Patreon crew. You guys are the reason we're able to do this and do the extra things and really do all the YouTube videos too. We wouldn't be able to make it work without you guys. So thank you so much. And any of the rest of you can jump on and watch any of these extra kind of things that we do on Patreon and see what's going on there. So check that out if you can.